StudyIQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल.
Learning is one thing and consolidation is another, and you need both. Today in our Parliament chapter, we are going to consolidate our learning which we have gathered till now in this heading, multifunctional role of Parliament. So what kind of role Parliament has? All of us know legislative aspect is a prominent one, means to make law. Apart from legislative power, Parliament also has executive power, financial power, constituent power. It means powers related to amendment to Indian Constitution. Then judicial power, electoral power, and other powers. Means we are going to talk about privileges there. Okay. Let's start with the legislative power, law-making power. UPSC will make a statement. Don't look at it. Just listen to my statement and tell me statement is true or false. The statement is, Parliament has exclusive power to make law on a matter mentioned in, on a subject mentioned in Union list as well as residuary power. Means statement is using the word exclusive power of Parliament with respect to Union list as well as residuary matters. Tell me the statement is true or false. Come on, in comments. Answer is true. Because residuary power means matter which are not mentioned in Union list, state list, concurrent list. I hope you remember I told you 7th schedule of Indian Constitution divide subjects on which law need to be made into 3 parts: union, state, concurrent. And those things which are not mentioned in any of them, we call them residuary power, residuary subjects. In case of residuary subjects, this power is with center, means union, means Parliament. Clear? Now, with regard to concurrent list, who is going to prevail? Means concurrent is the third list. It means on this Parliament as well as state legislature can make law. But if both are making law, whose law will prevail? Union's law will prevail. Okay, this is the standard, you can say, legislative framework. But I must tell you the update. Supreme Court says, in such a condition when these two laws are in conflict, because these were mentioned in concurrent list, we need not to continue this conflict and we need not to always say that union law is going to prevail. Ultimately, what is the objective? Objective is betterment of the people. So Supreme Court nowadays is using this doctrine of harmonious construction. Harmonious. What does it mean? Harmony. Right? So there should be harmony when these two laws are in conflict, with center and state law on matter in concurrent list. Harmony should be there. Now how can we have harmony? So Supreme Court construct this harmony. And how Supreme Court can construct this harmony? By actually specifically discussing those provisions in these laws which are in conflict. Then after the discussion, interpreting them in such a way so that this conflict can be resolved. So this is a harmonious construction. So Supreme Court is saying we should not align with this idea that always union law should prevail over state law in a matter of concurrent list. But the standard practice is that. Okay, Supreme Court intervention can actually do this harmonious construction. I hope it is clear to you now. Now, apart from this, also remember, this is an important section. Means Parliament can also make law on a matter mentioned in state list. Yes. So it is like Parliament can make law in union list. Parliament can make a law on a matter in concurrent list. Parliament is having exclusive power to make law in residuary list. But state list was remaining. Parliament can make law on a subject matter which is mentioned in state list. So when can Parliament do that? So UPSC is going to give you 3-4 statements and ask you which of the following statements are correct. Okay. Please remember, when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution in this regard, this law is of national importance, and that is why Rajya Sabha is saying that I am allowing that Parliament should make law. Means now Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha should come together and make a law on a matter mentioned in state list. So this can happen. Second, proclamation of national emergency. National emergency is in place. In this case also happen. More than means 2 or more states, they come to Parliament. They say, sir, please make law on this matter. Now Parliament is saying this matter is mentioned in state list. Why you are coming to me? Then these states are saying, sir, we think you are more expert in this. So please make law on this matter, though this matter is mentioned in state list. Now Parliament says, okay, check, we are going to make this law. So Parliament can make this law. Okay, but please remember, there's a special case here. The law made in the C condition is going to be applicable just on these states who made this joint request, not all states. Okay, whoever made the request, sir, this matter in state list, please make the law. then this law is going to be applicable only on these states. Clear? Now, when necessary to give effort to international agreements, for example, in case of Bangladesh, we entered into a national agreement, consider water, it may be a state subject, but for this international agreement, Parliament can make law. I'm using the word can make law when it seems necessary, although political ramifications are also taken into consideration while making such law. But you should know, as per Constitution, this clause D is there. For international agreements, treaties, convention, it can happen, right? So state list is not immune, okay? When president rule is in place, then also Parliament can make law on a matter in state list. Clear? So these cases should be, in your mind. There can be a question. Apart from this, we are still discussing legislative powers of Parliament. With respect to ordinance, what is ordinance? I told you, Article 1, 2, 3, right? There's a bill, and this Union Council of Ministers, they want this bill to be turned into an act. But as of now, recess is going on. Recess means session is not working, right? So it's like session is not there and you have to turn this bill into a law. So what Union Council of Ministers do? They brought this bill before Honorable President, sir, please declare it as an ordinance and you have to act on the aid and advice of us, Article 74. So now President would say, okay, I'm signing this and now this is an ordinance. You have issued this as an ordinance. Ordinance is like temporary law. But you cannot bypass Parliament because it is legislative power of Parliament. It needs to be approved by Parliament within 6 weeks after its reassembly. Recess was going on, but when Parliament is going to reassemble, then within 6 weeks you have to get this ordinance, this bill passed by Parliament. Ordinance becomes inoperative if it is not approved by Parliament, right? This is another legislative power of Parliament. Now, this word is quite used nowadays, delegated legislation. First understand what is delegated legislation. In case of delegated legislation, what Parliament do, they make a broad skeleton of law. A skeleton, just consider this. So you have these 8 blocks, 8 clauses. So consider this is a bill, okay? And in this bill, broad sections are mentioned, and within this section, this is not elaborated much, okay? So this bill is floated in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and got passed, right? But what Parliament is doing, what Union government is doing in coordination with Parliament, they want the detailed work, means detailed filling within these sections of this law to be done by bureaucrats, by the executives, means by the departments. So actually in this case, what you found, the real work of filling these clauses, filling this law, elaborating this law is delegated to executive branch, bureaucracy. So this is called delegated legislation. Although when this bill is filled by the executive, then this bill needs to be presented before Parliament as well for approval. Okay, but there's a criticism of this particular provision saying nowadays bureaucrats are becoming too much powerful even in lawmaking process. The Parliament makes law in a skeleton form and authorizes the executive, means bureaucrats, to make detailed rules and regulations. Detailed rules filling work would be done by bureaucrats within the framework of parent law. So parent law is broad skeleton within the framework. This is known as delegated legislation or even executive legislation or even subordinate legislation. Okay, subordinate, why subordinate word is used? You got delegated because responsibility was delegated. You got executive legislation because it is being done by executive filling work. Why subordinate? Because real duty of making law is with legislature. So now executive is doing that. That is why subordinate legislation. Such rules and regulations are placed before Parliament for examination as well. Now let's discuss executive power. First of all, you know that when it comes to Indian Parliament, we have an overlap. Means members of Indian Parliament are part of executive branch as well, right? Ministers, Prime Minister, right? So executive is responsible to Parliament for its policies and acts. Means Parliament keep a control over executive. Parliament exercise control over executive, and there are various tools, devices, which we discussed in devices part, 0 hour, question hour, half hour, right? 2.5 hour, motions, resolution. These ministers are collectively responsible to the Parliament and specifically responsible to Lok Sabha because they need to have majority support in Lok Sabha, right? As well as they are individually responsible. I told you about the censor motion which can be leveled against an individual minister, right? So it means you can ask question from a specific minister and minister has to answer you, right? So in this way, legislature is keeping a control over executive policies, what you have done in the 6 months, what you have done for this section, right? Lok Sabha can also express lack of confidence in the government in following ways. Government, executive. Please remember, I'm using the word lack of confidence. I'm not using the word no confidence. Okay. So now, lack of confidence by not passing motion of thanks. I told you, when president comes to the house for speech, there are 2 occasions. First session every year. First session after new Lok Sabha is convened. Thereafter, this motion of thanks, if it is not passed, then it is a mark that this government is not having majority support in Lok Sabha, right? It shows lack of confidence. Rejecting money bill. Money bill is actually presented by a minister, right? It is a public bill. I told you. So now, if minister is presenting a bill and she, they are not actually able to pass this bill from Lok Sabha, what does it mean? It means you are not having majority support in Lok Sabha. Otherwise, you would have passed money bill. So this is also represents lack of confidence. By passing a censure motion, adjournment motion. Censure motion, I told you, against a particular minister, that you're not happy with your conduct, you have to answer this. Breach, there's a breach of privilege. Adjournment motion, when there's a matter of urgent importance, I discussed this when I discussed adjournment prorogue, right? Defeating the government on a vital issue, there's a discussion, after discussion, there's a resolution, and now the government itself, they're not having majority support. Now, so you would be thinking, sir, if a party is having majority in Lok Sabha and they're having government, why would they be defeated? It's like their own people not supporting them. My friends, it happened especially in cases of coalition government. I remember clearly in UPA 2 government, it means when Manmohan Singh ji was Prime Minister, there was an instance when his government was facing huge criticism and regional parties were actually, snatching away their support. So in these cases, this may happen. Bypassing cut motion. Cut motion, it happens during the budget process. I told you, economy cut, policy cut, token cut. Cut motion is like we are not happy with the amount which you have given for this particular purpose. We are not happy with the policy you have mentioned in the budget. So it means if cut motion is passed, it means your own people are not supporting you. So it shows lack of confidence. Okay. Financial power and functions. So we have discussed legislative power, executive power, now financial power. Now tell me, is it possible for union government to spend in any manner from consolidate government or consolidate fund of India without approval of parliament? Is it possible? Is it possible you go to Modi ji and say, sir, I have this remarkable idea, and if you give me, say, 10,000 crore rupees, only 10,000 crore rupees, but within just 2 days, then I can transform, this particular area in India. Now, can Modi ji actually give you 10,000 rupees? Just sign something and give you 10,000 rupees? No. It's not in the hand of Modi, it's not in the hand of Prime Minister, because when it comes to spending from Constituent Fund of India, you need approval from Parliament, right? And that approval in the name of budget happens, right? No tax can be levied, collected, no expenditure can be done except by the approval of Parliament, okay? And the budget is placed before the Parliament for its approval. So don't you think it is financial power of Parliament that you need to get it approved? Otherwise, you cannot spend, right? The enactment of the budget by the Parliament legalizes the receipts and expenditure. You have to present that this much we have received, this much we are going to spend, then only it will be legalized. The Parliament also scrutinizes government spending and financial performance. One thing is giving approval. Even if you are given approval and now you are spending, Parliament is going to keep a check. You got approval to spend 10,000 crore rupees in these areas. Now give us the receipt. Give us the proof. Give us the utilization certificate that this much amount is actually spent in this manner. For that, we have our way. CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So audit is done, then this report is presented to President. President presents this report to Parliament. Within Parliament, this report is presented to PAC, Public Accounts Committee. Now, Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, they keep a check on the government whether you have done the expenditure as per the approval or not. Don't you think it's a good part? It is another matter of debate that whether this power is being used in effective manner or not. Now, they bring out the case of illegal, irregular, unauthorized, improper usage, extravagance. This is done through audit, and this audit report is presented to the Parliament. I told you. The parliamentary control over the executive in financial matter operates in two stages. One is approval, and second is post-budgetary control. Budgetary control controls before the appropriation grant. I'm talking about the budget process. And when you have given approval, after that, post-budgetary control means audit, control after appropriation through financial committees, for example, PAC. Okay. Now, budget is presented on the principle of annuality. What does this mean? Budget is being given approval for 1 year. Okay. You're getting permission to spend from consolidated fund for 1 year. And within that also, there will be a rule of lapse. For example, I've given you, say, 1 lakh crore rupees. And from 1 lakh crore rupees, this particular department, say health department, was given, say, 20,000 crore rupees. Now, end of financial year is near. And what we have found that this health department has just spent, say, 15,000 crore rupees. Now, 5,000 crore rupees are remaining, and we are in February. So, just one month is remaining. So, rule of lapse says, whatever you actually spend till 31st March is going to be considered spent. Extra money, the surplus money will be considered lapse. This money will be coming back to Consolidated Fund of India. And that is why in the March, if any one of you have some parents, siblings, friends working in government department, then they will tell you about March rush. You don't get holidays in March, in general, because there's so much, work there. You have to finalize the, payments. You have to get all the files done, because there'll be lapse. Otherwise, there'll be lapse. There'll be questions also. You were given this much money for the betterment of the public, and you have not spent that money. So, rule of lapse. I hope it is clear to you now. It facilitates effective financial control of the Parliament as reserve funds, and Parliament can also, means government cannot also build a reserve fund on its own. Anything which you are doing with the money, you have to get it approved with the Parliament. Okay. I think you must have heard this debate on PM CARES fund, right? Some people were saying, how can PM CARES fund be made as a reserve money, reserve fund? You can actually read that in the respect of this provision. Some people are saying, how can this happen? So you should know that PM CARES fund is not a government fund. Okay, that is why you cannot say it facilitates effective. You cannot say it's a reserve fund of the government and you need express permission of Parliament. It's a separate fund. It is not a reserve fund of Government of India. Okay. Heavy rush of expenditure. I told you about March rush. So I think the financial parts are quite clear to you now, right? Clear? Now, constituent power. It means we are talking about amending power of Constitution. Who can amend? Parliament. So Parliament can amend using three kind of majorities. One is simple majority. Example. Can you just give me example in which kind of amendment simple majority is used? Any one example in comments. Come on, let's think, recollect. Purpose is not just to make you understand. Purpose is to make you master. And for mastering, you need to reconnect, reflect. Article 3, we talked about amending, right? We talked about changing the name, territories. For that, Constitution need to be amended. But this amendment needs just simple majority. Article 3, Article 4. I told you about this in part 1 of Indian Constitution, right? Then special majority. And third case is special majority. Along with this, you need consent of at least half state legislatures. So can you just tell me, although I've explained this to you in amendment chapter, can you just tell me in which case the C kind of majority is used? Come on. Matter, for example, which are related to changing the federal structure. If you're making amendment in Constitution in such a way which is going to hamper states as well, state powers as well. In this case, you need ratification from half the states as well. For example, for implementation of GST, I hope you remember 2017, that Constitution amendment needed ratification from at least half states because you were taking away the indirect tax power of states. For example, excise duty, VAT, I hope you remember now, sales tax. Now, the constituent power of the Parliament, not unlimited. So Parliament is having power to amend Constitution, but it is not like it can amend anything anyway. right? You have to adhere to the basic structure doctrine which was given by Supreme Court in case of Nand Bharti case. I hope it is clear to you now. कई बार मन में सवाल आता होगा कि इस प्रिपरेशन को शुरू तो कर दिया है, मजा भी आ रहा है, तभी आप इस वीडियो में हैं, सीखने को तो मिल रहा है, लेकिन क्या उतना पढ़ा जा रहा है जितना इस एग्जाम को क्लियर करने के लिए जरूरी है? क्योंकि अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव तो क्या है? योर नेम इन मेरिट लिस्ट। तो देखिए, कंटेंट तो सेम है, लेकिन कंटेंट को यूज करने की हमें स्किल डेवलप करनी है। कैसे होगी वो स्किल डेवलप? पहले तो भाई टाइम से हर एक सब्जेक्ट का कंटेंट तैयार होना चाहिए। अगर आप वो कर रहे हैं ठीक है, लेकिन इफ यू वांट टू टेक हेल्प तो आप स्टडी आईक्यू की हेल्प ले सकते हैं। जो स्टडी आईक्यू का P2I प्रोग्राम है, आप स्टडी आईक्यू ऐप या वेबसाइट पर देख सकते हैं। P2I मतलब प्रीलिम्स से लेकर इंटरव्यू तक का एक प्रोग्राम। तो ये एक प्रोग्राम के अंदर 4 फेजेस हैं। तो उस 4 फेजेस के थ्रू पहले ही फेज में आपका कंप्लीट सिलेबस हो जाएगा। तो इट इज लाइक द बेसिक थिंग, ये तो करना ही है। इसके बाद आता है कि हमें स्किल्स डेवलप करनी है, यानी कि उस कंटेंट का प्रीलिम्स में इस्तेमाल हो सके, उस कंटेंट का मेंस में इस्तेमाल हो सके, यानी कि आंसर राइटिंग। फिर हमें असेसमेंट चाहिए बीच बीच में, जिससे कि हमें कमियां पता लगती रहें। तो इसके लिए भी P2I में आपको प्रीलिम्स मेंस दोनों की टेस्ट सीरीज दी जा रही है। वीकेंड पर भी टेस्ट होते हैं, प्लस डेली मेंस आंसर राइटिंग होती है। तो आपको नहीं लगता अगर इतना कोई मेहनत आपके साथ कर ले तो आप करना तो चाहते हैं, बट एक पाथवे नहीं है, तो P2I प्रोग्राम वो पाथवे आपके लिए साबित हो सकता है। तो टेक हेल्प ऑफ दिस। फिर आपके मन में कभी कभी जो डाउट आता है उसको ढूंढने के लिए आपका काफी समय जाया हो जाता है। जाया इसलिए कह रहा हूं क्योंकि हो सकता है उस डाउट को ढूंढने के लिए आपने 1 घंटा लगा दिया, क्योंकि उससे एसोसिएटेड काफी सारी चीजें नई नई पता लगती चली गई आपको। ऐसे में इस टाइम को रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं आप। एग्जाम ओरिएंटेड क्या उस डाउट से रिलेटेड नॉलेज आपको चाहिए, वो आपको एक पर्सनल मेंटोर बता सकता है। तो इस कोर्स में फैकल्टीज तो आपके साथ हैं ही, इस पूरी जर्नी में आपको पर्सनल मेंटोर दिया जा रहा है। आप उसकी हेल्प लीजिए। आप कॉल व्हाट्सएप पर कभी भी उनके साथ कनेक्ट हो सकते हैं। उनका नंबर आपको इस कोर्स में स्पेसिफिकली आपको अलॉट होगा। तो अल्टीमेटली आपका टाइम बचेगा, कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा प्रिपरेशन में। फिर जैसे आप प्रीलिम्स क्लियर कर लेते हैं तो उसके बाद मेंस रेजिडेंशियल प्रोग्राम, ये इसका सेकंड फेज मतलब थर्ड फेज कहिए, क्योंकि पहले फेज में फाउंडेशन है, फिर सक्सेस इन प्रीलिम्स है, फिर MRPM मेंस रेजिडेंशियल प्रोग्राम। फिर उसके लिए आप दिल्ली बुला लिया जाता है आपको। यहाँ पर आप मतलब जो फूडिंग लॉजिंग एवरीथिंग इज टेकन केयर बाय स्टडी आईक्यू। और उसके बाद फिर रिगरस प्रिपरेशन होती है आपकी मेंस के हिसाब से, यानी कि हर एक जो आपका पेपर है, GS है, लैंग्वेज है, एसे है, हर एक की तैयारी यहीं पर हम आपको अपने सामने कराते हैं। उसके बाद जैसे आप मेंस क्लियर करते हैं तो इंटरव्यू गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम, वहाँ पर आपके कोहोर्ट्स बनते हैं जिसमें डिस्कशन के थ्रू जो आपके अदर एस्पिरेंट्स हैं, जो आपके साथ इंटरव्यू देने वाले हैं, तो आप अपनी स्किल्स को पॉलिश करते हैं। साथ में ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, फॉर्मर टॉपर्स, ये सब फैकल्टीज आपको मिलकर गाइड करते हैं। फाइनली व्हेन यू आर थ्रू इनटू द मेरिट लिस्ट, देन फिर आपको लगता है कि हाँ, इट वाज ऑल वर्थ इट। मिलते हैं आपसे क्लासेस में, ख्याल रखिए। जय हिंद। Judicial power. So, judicial power, what does it mean? Does it mean that Parliament is working as a court? No. And we are talking about matters where Parliament is having some judicial function, not necessarily a full-fledged judiciary. For example, in impeachment of president, a removal of vice president. So, in these cases, conditions are discussed, why we are removing, then decision is taken. So, that is why we are saying judicial function. Okay? Recommend removal of judges, Supreme Court, High Court, punish its members or outsiders for breach of privilege. So there also, it works as a, it is judicial function. Those who are thinking, sir, what is this breach of privilege? We are going to talk about breach of privilege. Just hold on for a bit. Electoral powers. I hope it is clear to you. Judicial in nature, it means removal, right? Or action on in case privilege is violated, contempt of house has happened. Okay? So 2 words you need to remember: removal or just contempt or breach of privilege. Clear? Now, electoral powers and functions. Yeah, parliamentarians actually take part in various elections as well. For example, president, vice president, Lok Sabha members come together and elect a speaker, right? Deputy speaker. Similarly, Rajya Sabha members, they actually elect deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, right? So all of them, they come under electoral powers and functions. Clear? Apart from this, Parliament is also authorized to make law to make law to regulate these elections of president, vice president, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assembly. And for this, you can consider these as an example. For example, Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Act 1952 means how we are going to have these presidential elections, because in our constitution, how president is going to be elected, what are the qualifications, these things are mentioned, but specifically how procedure is going to be followed. So this is mentioned in this act. Similarly, Representation of People Act 1950, Representation of People Act 1951, right? Other powers and functions. Other powers, for example, Parliament is the highest deliberative body of India, Indian democracy. Important national issues are discussed here, international issues are discussed here. Along with this, there are three types of emergencies which need to be approved by Parliament. For example, emergencies are national, state, financial. We discussed in the emergency chapter as well, right? So apart from this, create or abolish legislative councils. For example, Uttar Pradesh, some states who say that we have large population and we need a second house at state legislature, means we need legislative council. So in this case, on this request of state legislative assembly, Parliament may consider this request and establish legislative council. So this is also power of Parliament to establish second legislative house at the level of state, right? Increase or decrease the area, alter, Article 3 bataya tha aapko, we discussed this, right? To change the boundary, to carve out another state, for example, Uttarakhand carved out of Uttar Pradesh, right? Using Article 3. It can regulate the organization, jurisdiction of Supreme Court. It can also enhance the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. It can also declare that we are establishing new High Court, establish common High Court also, that this particular High Court is going to be considered as High Court of these two states, right? If new state is being carved out, there will be a new High Court for that. Such law can be made by Parliament. Ineffectiveness of parliamentary control. Now, this is a mains question. There can be a mains question. Discuss the reasons or provisions or practices which reflect that Indian Parliament is having this ineffectiveness or ineffectiveness is hovering over its functions. So this kind of language can be made. So you need to have some points, right, which shows ineffectiveness and what are the reasons. It is said that Parliament is not having time or expertise to actually understand the complexities which we are having in our administration. Our administration has increased in volumes. New challenges are coming up. New sectors are coming up. And our parliamentarians are not equipped enough to understand these sectors. For example, crypto. A lot of hoopa hula is going around crypto. A bill is there in Parliament as of now. Many people are saying no, cryptocurrency and this trading, NFT, all of these things should be allowed. They should need to be regulated. Some people are saying no, these can be threat to our economy. It can provide shock to our economy. They cannot be secure. So, do you think Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is a new concept? No, right? It's an old concept. Why I'm saying old? Because after the subprime crisis in the world, global financial crisis, GFC, which started from US, we saw this emergence of this Bitcoin. So, long time has been passed, but still we are not having a specific policy with regard to crypto, right? A lot of committees were made. Mr. Shaktikant Das, current RBI governor, I remember when he was Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, he was also heading one committee who was apprehensive. Then there were some people within the administration who were quite positive. Then there are people still, there are some, you can say, some signals that the government is apprehensive. So it means our Parliament, new things are coming up and Parliament need to be ready for that, for these complexities. So there we can see that there's a gap. Parliament's financial control. When it comes to financial control, sometimes it is considered that our parliamentarians are not having specific knowledge of finances. They're like laymen, right? So there are some technicalities within financial administration which our parliamentarians are not equipped to discuss, to understand. So this is another challenge. They're doing crucial job, but they're not well aware of these technicalities. Legislative leadership lies with executive and plays significant role in formulating policies. Legislative leadership means in Lok Sabha, who is actually having majority? Government is having majority. So technically the executive union government is actually having majority say in Lok Sabha, right? So legislative leadership with executive. Very size of parliament is too large, and that is why unmanageable, ineffective. Majority support is enjoyed by executive, and that is why whatever policies executive want, they actually make it happen. So the difference of opinion is not given that much advantage in our parliament. Financial committees, for example, we have public account committee, examines the public expenditure. But when it is already approved, means I told you the audit is done, then this audit report is presented before the committee. Thus they do not do the post-mortem work. When job is done, now we are seeing audit report where you have done something wrong. So in case of US, their CAG, Comptroller Auditor General, that CAG position is not just involved in audit, they are also involved in appropriation. So one idea is this, although there's a counter opinion that this thing is fine, means post-mortem work by PSC is fine, otherwise it would amount to unnecessary delay in approval of these expenses by Parliament. The growth of delegated legislation has reduced the role of Parliament. Delegated legislation, I told you, executive are having more say in detailing the laws. Lack of strong and steady opposition. From quite some time we are observing this. Opposition is necessary for democracy, but opposition is weak. Apart from this, there are behavior and ethics issues with our parliamentarians. I must tell you, you are living in some of the best time of Indian Parliament, right? You're blessed with that. I've seen that time of Parliament when parliamentarians were actually throwing chairs and mics, papers on each other. Such was the stage of Indian Parliament once. Now, position of Rajya Sabha in respect to Lok Sabha. So we can categorize this into three heads. There can be a pre and mains, both kind of questions from this particular subtopic. There are areas where Rajya Sabha is equal to Lok Sabha. There are areas where Rajya Sabha is unequal to Lok Sabha. It means Lok Sabha is having more power. But there are also some areas where Rajya Sabha is having special powers which are not with Lok Sabha. And you need to know all three cases. Clear? First, equal status. With respect to ordinary bills, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, this introduction and passage of ordinary bill, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have equal say. Means they can be introduced in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Passage need to be approved in the same way, simple majority. Introduction and passage of finance bill class 2. Expenditure of the consulate fund. Why? I hope you remember. I told you finance bill class 1 can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. But in case of finance bill class 2, it can be introduced in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha as well. Right? Passage is also same as case of ordinary bill. So in this aspect, the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha are equal. Election and impeachment of the president, it can be initiated in the either house. Right? Removal of vice president, same. However, Rajya Sabha alone can initiate the removal of the vice president. So, in case of election, removal of vice president, so Rajya Sabha is not, you can say, below Lok Sabha. But as you know that vice president is ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, that is why the proposal can only initiate in Rajya Sabha. Right? I told you, effective majority in Rajya Sabha, then it is passed, then it is presented to Lok Sabha. Right? I hope you remember. And then in Lok Sabha, it need to be passed by simple majority. Right? Making recommendations to the president for removal of the Chief Justice or Supreme Court judges. In that respect also, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha are equal. Approval of ordinances. It's not like just get it approved from Lok Sabha and job will be done. No, you need to be approved by Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, both. Approval proclamation of emergencies. I hope you remember National Emergency chapter. It need to be approved by Parliament within 30 days. I hope you remember within 1 month in case of national emergency. Right? I also told you when Lok Sabha is dissolved and national emergency has already been proclaimed, in that case, get it passed from Rajya Sabha. But when Lok Sabha is reconvened, then you need to pass from Lok Sabha. So it means both houses have say when it comes to approval of national emergency. Right? Selection of ministers, Prime Minister, means Prime Minister can be a member of Rajya Sabha as well. For example, Manmohan Singh ji, he was a member of Rajya Sabha. Under the constitution, the ministers, including Prime Minister, can be a member of any house. But please remember, whether you are a member of Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha, if you are a minister, you are responsible to Lok Sabha only. When I say only, it means your position is secure till the point you have majority support in Lok Sabha. That is why I am using the word only. Clear? Consideration of the reports of the constitutional bodies like Finance Commission, UPSC, CAG, in that respect, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are equal. Prelims kind of question can also be made. This statement can be used. Please remember. Enlargement of jurisdiction. of the Supreme Court, UPSC. In this case also, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha are equal. Now just attempt this question. I hope it is visible to you comfortably. If not, let me read it out for you. But you have to attempt. And I would highly appreciate when I say comment, you just, whenever you are watching this video, just mention comment. Okay. Now, Rajya Sabha alone can initiate the removal of Vice President by simple majority. Tell me the statement is true or false, because you have to tell correct. This is false. I've just told you. It can initiate in Rajya Sabha, but you need effective majority in Rajya Sabha, right? Resolution for removal of Vice President is to be agreed upon by the Lok Sabha by effective majority. Again, wrong. It need to be approved by Lok Sabha, but by simple majority. Just told you. So, effective majority in Rajya Sabha and simple majority in Lok Sabha. Because Vice President, ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, right? So, there you need effective majority to get him removed or her removed. Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha has equal power over the election of Vice President. Correct. Vice President is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Correct. The electoral college to elect a person to the office of Vice President consists of only or all the elected members of the House of Parliament. Tell me the statement is true or false. Answer is false. Why? Because in case of Vice President election, nominated members can also be included. Right? That is why answer is C. 3 and 4. I hope it is clear to you now. Now, unequal status, let's talk about. Equal status is clear. The cases in which Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha are equal, unequal status. In case of money bill can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. And also told you the cases. Then in respect of money bill, this Rajya Sabha cannot amend, cannot reject money bill. They can only recommend. And that recommendation is not mandatory in Lok Sabha. They can reject, they can accept. Right? And for the maximum how much time Rajya Sabha can install a money bill? That is for 14 days. And if nothing has been done by Rajya Sabha for 14 days, it is deemed to have been passed and presented before President. So in this respect, Lok Sabha is considered superior. Right? So finance bill not containing solely matters of Article 110. We are talking about finance bill class 1. I hope you remember. So in this case, it can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. So in this case also, it is unequal in case of, in comparison to Rajya Sabha. Now attempt this question. We discussed this in detail, right? When we were discussing bills. Consider the following statement regarding unequal status of Lok Sabha. I think it is visible to you comfortably. Right. The Speaker of Lok Sabha presides over the joint sitting of the both houses. You have to tell correct. Just tell me, this is correct or not? Yes, it is. Told you. Joint sitting presided by Speaker. The Lok Sabha with greater number wins the battle in joint sitting except when combined strength of the ruling party in the both houses is less than the opposite parties. Yes. We compare the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha who has numerical strength in comparison to both. So Lok Sabha is more in number, more members in number. So definitely they have advantage. But if ruling party is not having combined strength, if Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and opposition members are more, then obviously they cannot have this advantage. Rajya Sabha can only discuss the budget but cannot vote on the demand for grants, which is the exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha. It is correct. A resolution for the discontinuance of the national emergency can be passed only by the Lok Sabha, not by the Rajya Sabha. Yes, it is correct. We discussed this in the emergency chapter. If national emergency is imposed, so if it need to be removed, so a special session in Lok Sabha can be called upon. We discussed it, right? And if it is passed by Lok Sabha, then national emergency is gone. So it means answer is all of the above. D. Correct. Special powers of Rajya Sabha. Please remember, one is it authorized Parliament to make law on a subject matter on state list. So as per Article 249, this article should be remembered. It keep on whenever there's an issue on federalism and there are some articles. This article is many times mentioned, so it will be imprinted in your mind on its own when you are going to practice also the questions. It can authorize the Parliament to create All India Service. As you know, there was debate that there should be IJS also, like IAS, IPS. There should be Indian Judicial Service. So how it can happen? Special powers with Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha can authorize the Parliament. Please remember, as per Article 312. Okay? All India Service. Except in financial matters and control over the Council of Ministers, the power and status of Rajya Sabha and with respect to Lok Sabha are broadly equal. But when it comes to financial matters, when it comes to control of Council of Ministers, Lok Sabha is superior than Rajya Sabha in these aspects for the practical reasons, right? So I hope this is quite clear to you now. Let's talk about parliamentary privileges. What is the meaning of privilege? Privilege means you are given some special, you can say, cover, right? And why special cover, special avenues are provided? So that you can function effectively, right? And same is the logic of parliamentary privileges. So parliamentary privileges are special rights, immunities, exemptions enjoyed by the two houses, their committees and their members. And that is why we divide privileges into two parts, collective privilege and individual privilege. Collective means these privileges, these special immunities are concerned with the house as a whole, and there are individual privileges as well. These are necessary in order to secure the independence and effectiveness in their function. If you're an MP from an area, you need to be provided with certain immunities, exemptions so that you can work without fear. Without these privileges, the house can neither maintain authority, dignity and honor. And that is why for discharging their duties, responsibilities, these parliamentary privileges become important. But you must be thinking, what are these? These are classified into two parts, collective and individual. Collective. For example, there are debates, discussion, reports which are being presented in the house. This is collective responsibility of the house, that house publishes these reports. And house can also obstruct you to publish these reports in public domain. So this is coming from Article 105. What does it mean? It means, consider, you are a reporter and there is a proceeding going on in the house and there was something which was discussed which was unbecoming. And speaker said, no reporter should publish this report in public domain. Now, tell me, can you do that or not? So interpretation of Article 105 says you cannot do that, since presiding officer said that you cannot publish this outside. So this was later clarified after 44th Amendment Act. 44th said, if you want to publish truth that actually happened in the parliament and you have some proof, then you can do that. But you cannot do that if such proceeding was a secret proceeding, secret sitting of the house. You cannot publish report which was in secret sitting of the house. So consider you are a reporter and you met a member of parliament and you were shaking hand with that member of parliament and you slipped some microphone or some device in his some say pocket or something, and that member of parliament was part of secret sitting. And now you took this microphone and you publish this audio or video on your channel for gaining TRP. So you may be getting a letter from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay, because this was secret sitting. And you publishing it is against privilege of parliament. So they will tell you this, you come to our Haveli, okay, and we'll tell you what is going to happen. There can be actions against you. They may be imposed fine, and you may be also suggested that you may be lodged into jail for some time, right? Maybe 3 months or more. It can exclude strangers from its proceedings, hold secret sittings. Okay, you must be knowing that apart from members of parliament, you as a student can also go to parliament and actually witness these parliamentary proceedings. Yes, you can go there. How? Just go to your local MP or MLA. If you want to go to parliament, obviously your Lok Sabha MP, if you want to go to Lok Sabha, and you present your application that I am preparing for UPSC and I want to witness this parliamentary proceeding, please allow me to do so, and you just paste your IDs. Then your Lok Sabha MP is going to write a letter, sign it and send it to Lok Sabha Secretariat. Then Lok Sabha Secretariat is going to issue a pass to you on a specific day and you will be invited to be there. Okay, when you are going to enter, you have to give all your keys, mobile, pen, everything outside, and you can actually sit in the visitors lobby. Okay, so interesting, right? You can do that. But if Lok Sabha wants to exclude people from particular sitting, then they can exclude that. No outsider will be allowed in visitors gallery. This can happen. This collective privilege of parliament. It can make rules to regulate its own procedures, make rules to regulate, means can make own rules, right, for effectively function. It has right to receive immediate information of arrest, detention, conviction. If you're a member of parliament, okay, and you're arrested, so local police, whoever is arresting you, has to intimate the Lok Sabha Secretariat also. If you're a Rajya Sabha member, Rajya Sabha Secretariat also, right? It can institute inquiries, and attendance of witness and send relevant paper record. If there's some proceedings are going on in the house, they can ask for inquiry and all the papers associated with that. Court are prohibited to actually proceedings of the house, to discuss the proceedings of the house. This proceedings of the house are the immune from the intervention of court. No person, either a member or outsider. Now, this is a catch. Consider you are not an MP, but you were a stranger and sitting in the Lok Sabha by the process I just told you. Now there is a civil case or criminal case against you. Can police actually come into the house and actually grab your collar and arrest you? No. You are in the house. In the house, actually nothing can happen. No arrest, nothing can happen without the permission of presiding officer. So no person, either a member or outsider, can be arrested. No legal process, civil or criminal, can be resolved within the house without the permission of presiding officer. Please remember, I am saying civil or criminal within the house. When you are in the house, when you are outside the house, anything can happen, my friend. Okay. Let's talk about individual privilege. Okay. Some people actually get confused with this provision. So it is your individual privilege that you will not be arrested when session is going on. You will not be arrested 40 days in advance. You will not be arrested 40 days after the session in civil matters, not in criminal matters, right? Or preventive detention cases. So this can be a factual provision-based prelims question. Please remember it. This protection, individual privilege, is available only in civil case. And those who are thinking, sir, just you told us the protection in civil and criminal. I told you that you will not be arrested, no legal process against you when within the house. Now you are outside the house, right? Clear? And why this 40 days after and during the session? Because it is considered, since you are representative of people and you should be given this time to participate in the house, and before 40 days you need to get ready with the questions or prepare for the house, and after that you need to be among the people and tell them what happened in the house, right? That is why this limit is given. This freedom of speech in the parliament as per Article 105. So whatever you said in parliament is not going to be questioned in any court. This is your individual privilege. Exempt from jury service. So this is the old practice. Okay, jury service. So what used to happen that there will be judge in a judiciary, and there will be some people, from the society who are considered respectful. They will also listen to the argument within the case. So that was jury service. But now in India we don't have jury service, so this provision is not applicable. Breach of privilege and contempt of the house. So you got to know the collective privilege and individual privilege. Privileges are fine, but what is going to happen if privileges are breached? When an individual or authority disregard, attack the privileges, the rights, or the immunities, either a member of the individually or collective, then breach of privilege will be considered. And House can initiate action. House can initiate action, right? They will send a letter of the fine or may actually give you some sentence as well. Any act or omission which obstruct the House of Parliament. For example, you are actually stopping a particular officer who is working in Parliament from doing his or her duty. You're obstructing a member of Parliament to participate in the housing proceedings. For example, there's a vote going to happen today on an important bill, and you actually kidnapped 2-3 MPs. So it is like you are obstructing. So kidnapping charge would be separate, but breach of privilege will also happen because you're stopping the functioning of the Parliament, right? If it is found that you were doing just to actually have some impact on the passage of the bill. So in this case, contempt of the House will happen. This will be considered as contempt of the House, since you have obstructed the functioning of the House, and actions can be taken. Sovereignty of Indian Parliament. If I ask you, do you think Indian Parliament is sovereign? First of all, what is the meaning of sovereign? So it means you are supreme, right? So doctrine of sovereignty of Parliament is stated with British Parliament. In Britain, Parliament is supreme. Even Parliament decide what is considered as constitution, what is not considered as constitution, because they are having unwritten constitution. Some legal, documents collectively they are considered as constitution, and then such declaration is done by Parliament of Britain. So supreme power within the state. So supreme power means Great Britain lies, in this case, they have the sovereignty of Parliament. But in India, we don't have sovereignty of Parliament, right? In British case, there are no legal restrictions of the Parliament jurisdiction. But in India, we believe in constitutional supremacy, not supremacy of Parliament. So there are some legal restrictions on our parliament. What are those legal restrictions? Number one, written nature of our constitution. That is why I said constitution is supreme. Federal system of the government. That is why our parliament cannot function, on its own. Parliament cannot make any law which is mentioned in stateless unless the process which I discussed today is followed. Judicial review is also there. You make a law, but there is Supreme Court sitting there. Supreme Court say, okay, we are going to review. If it is against constitution, it will be declared null and void. Fundamental rights, you cannot abridge fundamental rights, right? So it means these are the restrictions over Indian Parliament. So these are some subject matters which are mentioned in your Lakshmikant. Why I mentioned it here? You need not to cram that. Just open your Lakshmikant book and just go through them. That's it. These articles, these subjects, you are going to see in many articles in due course of time. You are going to see in many questions which you are going to practice. So important ones are going to be absorbed in your mind in any case. Now, the question, who said parliamentary system provides a daily as well as periodic assessment of the government? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So it's like parliamentary system keeping a check over the government. So sometimes statement kind of questions are also asked. Which one of the following is the largest committee of Indian Parliament? This is factual question, estimates committee. In the next lecture, we are going to discuss committees also, parliamentary committees. Don't worry. So there's 30 members there, we're going to discuss. Which of the following is not a tool of parliamentary control over public expenditures? Now, some questions are going to be understood using logic. That is why I'm using it here. Even if you have not read this, you can answer this. If you understand polity by logic, not just cramming. It is saying which of the following is not a tool of parliamentary control over public expenditure. Parliamentary control. Public Accounts Committee, CAG, Estimates Committee, Committee on Public Undertakings. Now, parliamentary control, direct parliamentary control is done by committees. Okay. Sometimes in questions, options are very close. Some people would think, oh, through CAG, there's a report and this report is taken into consideration by PSC, and that's why we can say that parliamentary control of public expenditure. You are also correct. But my friend, sometimes the options are quite close. In that case, we need to check on the premises of which option is direct and which is indirect. So indirect will be considered, okay, this is wrong. So in this case, these are committees used to keep a check on public expenditure. But this is a separate body. So that is why B is the answer. It is not a tool directly in the hand of parliament. Okay. So I hope this video helped you, and you are clear with these details which we discussed today. Now this PDF is going to be available in Shashank Tyagi for you Telegram group. If you have any doubt, you can shoot me a message on shashank.powerbeing.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।